I'm a critic when it comes to fights and when it comes to movies and Southpaw. I'll let you know right off the bat. I told Michael, well, he gets a cut right here, but when you see the Cutman working on the cut, he puts a swab up there, so he misses a cut about that much. We in the boxing game, we notice things like that, right? Didn't happen in Creed. What's up, GQ? I'm Stitch Duran, and this is The Breakdown. Creed 3.
That was better. Stay focused. You take him where you want to go. Keep punching through.
You know, having done 3 with Michael B. Jordan is priceless. In the second one, I was telling him how proud I was of him and Tessa and Ryan Coogler and Steve Campbell that was directing it, and I'm wrapping his hands, just him and I. And he looks at me and says, Stitch, we went from being actors to writers, producers, directors. And he says, I'm directing Creed 3. And you're with me as long as you want. I gotta love Michael. You know, he's such a good kid, and he respects me enough to use me as somebody with authenticity. He'll come up to me and they'll ask me for the proper things of doing things. So how many guys can say they've done 3 movies with Sylvester Stallone? I have. In the script, my name was Marcel. Well, I don't know anybody named Marcel. So I was trying to figure out a way how to do it. But when it was time for Rocky to introduce us to Adonis, he says, oh, this is Stitch, the best cut man in Philadelphia.
And Stitch, best cut man in Philadelphia. Hope we don't need him.
From there, I said, God, thank you. You know, the next day, I said, look, I want to thank you. He says, no, it has to be authentic. So Stitch came out. Working the corner today, I was telling my wife last night, during the fights, you know, I go through all that, and then I'll pull the cup out so they could breathe. Michael says, I didn't know you guys did that. You know, so he picked that up watching fights, and I did that as the authenticity.
Way to hang out there, wear him out. Look, boy, a punk. You see, you not.
Yeah, right there, I'm pulling on his cup. That is the KO swell. My wife named it the KO swell, but you know, all the end swells that they have before, they're all flat. I was coming back from a UFC in London years ago, and I had a water bottle, and I put it here, and it's always contoured like that. So I went home, and I got some clay, and I made a prototype of that. Then I had one made. It's curved because a majority of the swelling happens here or happens here. So the theory of a flat iron on something that's curved didn't make sense to me. So one side is flat. Let's say you got swelling here, you can put the flat side here, but if you swell here, then that one, and that cold direct pressure.
Let go of whatever was and walk into what is. Go out there and be ferocious, you hear me? Be ferocious. Go out there, be Adonis Creed.
Psychology is major. I mean, it's major big. And basically what he's doing, what I did with Vladimir Klitschko when he fought Anthony Joshua his last fight, when he lost his world title. In the dressing room, I put my hand on him. I said, look, don't worry about nothing tomorrow. I'm gonna take care of you like you're my son. And I leave, because I know the night before they can't sleep. I'm putting the final Vaseline on him before Michael Buffer does the announcements, and we're this far apart. He looks at me and says, you could call me son. Oh my God, that gave me chills, but I knew I had gotten into his mind. One of the best fights he ever had in his career. The importance of this, I had seen him like 3 months later in Germany. And I said, Vladimir, that moment, why? He says, Stitch, there's very few people I trust in my life. You are one of them. Those are the moments like that make my whole job fun. It's not even a job, it's an adventure. Here comes the boom. You might recognize this guy right here.
Oh, God. Stitch, I can't believe you're working on me, man. That's so awesome.
You know, I was doing a UFC, I think at the Mandalay Bay, and this one guy says, hey man, I want to take a picture. That's how, come on. Then he says, Kevin James wants you in the movie. And of course, you know, I loved it. As I get the script, I have no lines, right? And you know, lines always bring residuals, so I got to think of something. When it was time for me to do my scene with Kevin James, he pulls me aside and says, Stitch, we got to have you say something. And I thought about this 2 weeks before. I said, well, you know, I always tell the guys, welcome to the UFC. I love it. As we go through the scene, I walk in and, Stitch, big fan of yours, can't believe you're working on me. I'm cleaning them up, I'm working them, and at the end, I slap them.
I'm having a crazy month of meeting people.
All right, welcome to the UFC, huh?
Thank you.
I said, well, welcome to the UFC, and then I walk away. Well, nobody knows I was gonna slap them. They loved it. It was one take, and it's in the movie. Yeah, you know, the difference between an MMA fight and a boxing fight is MMA, their cuts are usually multiple cuts, a little bit deeper, and different areas, you know, on top of the head, eyebrows and all that, you know, the knees, the elbows. Boxing, shoot, if I get one cut, I could be eating popcorn at the same time as I'm working on the cut. If you're a veteran cut man in MMA, you could do boxing. The boxer.
We're not ready.
Well, I noticed that the Cutman's using 3 little skinny swabs on a cut. The cut's probably about this big, and you're trying to stop a dyke with a finger. It's gonna take a little bit more than that. But the fight scenes were pretty good, man. I kind of brought back the memories of Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward. Yeah, they did a good job. Pause. When you see this type of cut, number one, my whole time that the fighter's fighting, my whole focus is on his face. And if there's any damage, if I could get up in the ring and work on it within 7 seconds, I've done a good job. First thing you do is you want to clean it up with a wet towel, small towel. Clean it out, put direct pressure on it, and then put the swabs on there. And the swabs that I use, I make them to where the cotton swab is a lot bigger. So I'll soak it into the adrenaline chloride 1/1000, which is a vessel constrictor. I'll put it on the cut. The little vessels will absorb the adrenaline, close up the vessels. And then I would close it up with a mixture of the adrenaline and Vaseline and have him go out there and go another round.
I'll tell you when I've had enough.
Finish him.
When is enough enough?
That's a good question. When is enough is enough? And I had one fight that I stopped because I saw that the fighter was taking what I consider long-term damage. He's getting hit here and he's coming out here. I'm working on the fighter and I asked him, look, the doctors are thinking of stopping the fight. You want to continue? And he gives me a real slight no and boop, stop the fight. The 2 trainers, no, he's okay, one more round. But once he said no, I'm not going to let him go back out there. The next day, 8 o'clock in the morning, him and his wife called me and they thanked me. And he says very simply, I just didn't have nothing in me. My job, the eyes and the body structure, tells me a lot. Earl Spence, when he fought Crawford, after he got dropped the first time, his whole body language changed completely, where it was more on the negative side than it was on the positive side. And that's why it's so important to have a good team with you. Rocky IV. Rocky was doing everything that you should be doing for that type of fighter. He's out there in the trenches. He's running in the snow, which makes it difficult for his legs and the thighs. And believe it or not, the thighs of all the muscles are probably your most important because that's where you get your balance point. Guys chop wood, it's the thing about it, you're dealing with strength and acceleration and then endurance. I interviewed Mike Tyson and I said, Mike, every fighter has that one little thing that nobody has. What's that one little thing? He says, you gotta get your body in 100% physical condition because your body tells your mind what to do. It's a good example right there. But then he says, you have to take the pain. You have to take the pain. Mike is so right because you take a pain in training, you take pain in the fights, you take pain with your family, you take pain financially, and then you take pain with long-term injuries. This movie kind of said it right there.
No pain. No pain. Keep taking it more.
I noticed that Cutman are putting swabs in their mouth. I always tell these young fighters, I said, look, if you're looking for a good Cutman, if you put the swab in his mouth or in his ear, get another Cutman. That's filthy. That's the old school mentality, right? Ask your Cutman what the adrenaline chloride 1/1000 does, the medication. It's a vessel constrictor. If the guy says it's a coagulant, get another Cutman because that's the wrong information. And that was in the old school when boxing was boxing. Everybody followed everybody's example whether it was right or wrong. Putting swabs, no gloves in your mouth and ear, those are things that I'm working on trying to get rid of. Ali.
Some of mine, I can't see nothing.
We're not programmed to handle those kind of injuries. The cornerman did what he could under those circumstances, at least try to flush it out with water. I probably would have tried to open it up a little bit more and just kind of clean it and scrub it. Those are situations that never happen, and when they happen, you have to make your split-second decision, and that's about as best as that guy could do.
Just get
I can't see, man.
Come on, get on your place. Dance.
They were using, at that time, Monset solution was a legal application, but it's a sulfuric base. I worked with Livingstone Bramble when he fought this kid in Minnesota or something like that. The kid ended up with a big old cut, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, they're gonna stop the fight. Next thing I know, it's not bleeding. A couple years later, I saw the kid came into Las Vegas to train, and I asked him about that cut, and he says, I literally had to go to the hospital. They had to cut that dead tissue out because it's burnt. It's a sulfuric base, right? And it burned the tissue to the point where he had to cut it off and they had to re-sew it. That's probably what happened to Muhammad Ali, is he got that Monset solution in the eyes, and that's what burnt. If Sonny Liston wasn't cut, why would you use Monset solution? I don't know if it was intended or if they used it on the cut. I don't know. Warrior.
Go in there, you kick him in the head, take him down, and Finish him.
Well, he missed the everything. The cut's up here, number one, he put it down here, but the end swell, the KO swell as I call it, is used for swelling. And what happens when you get swelling is you get all these little veins that pop, and then they start accumulating into a little bubble of blood. How many times you get cut and you put your finger on the cut, and, a minute later, it stops bleeding? Well, blood coagulates itself. But if you help it with a cold compress, you close those vessels that are underneath there. A lot of guys will try to move that into an area that's not damaged, but then you move it into an area that's damaged, and it comes right back. Now it gets a little bit bigger. So cold, direct pressure. Yeah, this guy was a good attempt, but he was right below the cheekbone. But no, the fight scenes were real good. The excitement of the corner and the audience, been there and seen it many times.
I heard it, Janz. Pop the shoulder? Yeah. Good, okay, I want you to pop his other shoulder.
The head coach was giving him water and using the end swell, KO swell at the same time. If you're a coach, be a coach. I always bring a Cutman to come in and do what he does, because my whole focus will be the face. He's looking at everything, angles and techniques and all that. So don't distract from what you're doing. Give that fighter 100% of your knowledge, and don't worry about the cut, let somebody else do it. $1 Million Baby.
There you go.
What was going on there?
Major mistakes. You don't use sponges. That blood gets inside the sponge, and if you're gonna use on somebody else, that blood's still gonna be there. So it's filthy. Throw the sponge away. But even the application, the guy in the green that's holding the bottle of adrenaline chloride 1000, so the corner man is wasting seconds by dipping it in there, getting it ready, and then putting it on the cut. And once again, he has 2 little swabs working on a cut. It's not the way boxing should be done.
You pull that crap one more time, you're disqualified.
Ice on the back of the neck, I don't do that. Some fighters want it just to cool them off. I'll have the other guys do it. I'll have the team do it. My whole focus is on the face. Yeah, who wants cold stuff on you? You got blood around the nose, you got blood still the side of the head here. That should have been cleaned up before you start working with the medications. I did a interview with Marco Antonio Barrera. We was talking about the cuts, and he said, what do you think about those guys that get the swabs and they rotate it in there? That's horrible. You go home and get a Q-tip and rub it in your nose, it's gonna make you sneeze, number one. They're creating damage more than they're helping anything else. Can I make comment on that sponge? So when we're filming Creed 3, somebody had that idea. The guy in our corner got the sponge and he did this, not knowing, I didn't know that he was gonna do that. He gets water all over my glasses and everything, and I'm going like this, and the camera guy's laughing. So that was the only time they did it. Don't do that, so.
Eyes are blurring, boss.
There it is. All right, you see how he's moving that end swell? You see how the tissue's being moved and all that? That's what I'm talking about, going into tissue that's not damaged. She looks worse than when she first sat down. Cinderella Man.
Smashes him with a big right.
It's a little over-exaggerated, right? And, the guy is down. The guy comes and he punches him when he's down. You can't do that. The referee should normally pick him up, do the standing A count, make sure that he's cleared, and then let him go out. But, and I'm looking back at this. I'm looking at the gloves, and, okay, well, those might be the type of gloves from the 40s or 50s, wherever this was shot. Maybe this is the way that they fought then, when the only rules were, there really were no rules, right? Now the standard thing is the 8-ounce gloves, they go from the small weights up to, I think, a maximum 154 pounds. Some states, I think, 147. But then from there, it goes to 10-ounce gloves, from, let's say, 154 to heavyweight. There's always been a lot of questions on that, because if you're a heavyweight, why should you wear a glove designed for a 154-pounder? Shouldn't you get a bigger glove? Those are questions with never an answer. So we'll see, Raging Bull.
After 10 rounds, Judge Rossi, 8-2, La Mata. Judge Murphy, 7-3, La Mata.
Raging Bull's classic movie, but the scoring system, 8 rounds to 2, 7 rounds to 3. Here now they use a 10-point must system, right? So that was then.
You ever just pour water on a guy before cleaning him up?
No, I don't, no. It's funny you say that because I was working on a cut one time, and this guy decides to get a towel full of water and squeeze it all over the guy's head, and it dilutes my medication. I jumped on it. Don't you ever do that again. They don't know. You know, that's a good example right there. The fighter.
You gotta win a title. For you, for me, for Lowell.
This is your time, all right? You take it. I had my time, I blew it. You don't have to, all right?
Yeah, I would have cleaned them up a little bit, but I love the eye contact. You know, eye contact is so important when the coach is talking to the fighter to be focused. That I got to give him credit for. At the same token, as he's talking to him, the Cutman should be working on his face. You take advantage of those seconds.
Once again, Ward against the ropes as Neary is free to attack.
What are you doing? Come on, Mick.
During the rounds, I'm as quiet as could be. You know, we always have these discussions. If I see something, I'll let you know, because they know my experience factor. If I say something, it's the truth, right? But if a fighter gets cut, then I coordinate, I already talked to the corner. I said, look, let's trade places. I'm going inside, you stay on the outside. So we already coordinate that in the dressing room, but you also talk during the fight. Basically, we have 50 seconds to work with. 10 seconds before the bell rings, you get the timekeeper that will give you the warning to get out, and they try to rush you out. So if you could get up there, start working on them within 7 seconds, you know, you're maximizing your time. I told Sylvester Stallone, I said, look, I'm typecast as a Cutman, which is nothing wrong with that. But look, I'd love to do one of your movies, The Expendables, or I could be a cop, I could be a preacher, I could be a teacher, I could be something outside of being a Cutman. Just give me one little shot, you know, so we'll see what happens.